What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel for another S10 video. Unfortunately, the Mustang is still in the garage and mobile, and she sits right where we left her in the last video. And we've gotten about 3 days of rain here in the last couple of days. It's made it pretty hard to get out here and do anything, but today we've got some sunshine, and I figured I better get my butt out here and get something done. But on the S10, we are chasing a short in the ignition system, and somebody has installed a starter button to bypass the ignition, and you have to turn the key all the way to the start position and then hit the key, or the button rather, to get it to fire up and run. If you put it in the run position and hit the button, it'll fire, but it dies immediately. So today we're hoping to find that issue and get rid of the starter button and maybe kill two birds with one stone and go ahead and figure out what's going on with this fuel gauge so she can tell how much gas she's got in her truck. And I've got a little surprise for her. We're going to go ahead and install a Bluetooth stereo while we're in there. That way we don't have to take this gauge bezel out 20 times and end up breaking the dang thing. So let's get to it, guys, and hopefully we don't get any more rain. So there's a few things we need to check, but we will be dropping the column to make room for the gauge bezel removal. There is a fusible link somewhere near the alternator according to the schematic, but I don't really see anything right offhand, so I'll have to do a little Googling to try to figure out where that is. And then we've got a relay and a fuse, and also our starter switch wire. All right, and first things first, guys, always disconnect your negative battery terminal when you're messing with anything electrical. But on this gauge bezel, I know I've already got some issues with broken tabs, so I want to be as careful as possible not to break this thing. But here is our starter button we're trying to remove. So first thing we want to do is to pull this knee panel out, and then I'm going to drop down the steering column to try to make as much room to pop this out without having any pinch points or anything to cause any damage. And it's not a good sign when you're taking apart your dash and you're finding broken chunks of plastic. Once that's out of the way, you can see your wiring for your column, so you can give that a visual inspection, see if you can't find the culprit straight off the rip. But chances are it's somewhere else. It could even be in the switch or the connector. But I don't see anything suspect right away, so. But we know our starter switch wire is about a 10 gauge pink or purple coming from the ignition, so I think that's it right there. We'll follow that into the switch and harness and see if we can't figure it out. Now we'll go ahead and pull our connector. That way this will drop down and we'll be able to look at these wires a little better. And the connector itself looks good. I don't see any burn marks in it or in that part of it. So I've got my multimeter here and we're going to test for continuity. And I've got my jumper wire connected to my starter solenoid switch wire versus trying to stretch my test lead all the way out there. That way I can show you guys that this thing's getting power. On the run circuit from both main power sources, and then the starter switch wire we aren't getting anything. So I've checked my relay and my fuses and everything's good, but since I'm not getting anything in crank, that tells me I've got a bad ignition switch. So while we wait on parts, because I'm gonna have to get that ordered, we will go ahead and finish removing the gauge bezel and get this stereo installed. So I've got a dash kit to install the new CD player in the dash and a wiring harness, and this is the wiring harness from the stereo, but it's pretty straightforward. The aftermarket wiring harness is color coded, so you just connect all these to the corresponding colors on the harness and it plugs right into your factory harness. And also, since she is her father's daughter, I'm probably going to be running RCAs and an amp wire for the switch wire while I'm in there, because I know one day she's probably going to want an amp. So let's get this wired up, finish removing the gauge bezel, and we'll get that stereo installed while we wait. As you can see, we've had lots of lovely weather lately. This is her replacement armrest cover, and it is Dorman number 925002. And she's going to install that for you guys real quick.
Stay. Yummy. It actually stays shut now.
What?
What?
I've got her stereo harness all wired up. This end plugs into the factory stereo harness. This end plugs into her Bluetooth CD player. And then I've got 3 extra wires here. One is a ground, one is a power accessory, and the other one is her remote wire for her amp, which I'm going to wire to this LED powered toggle switch that I'm going to mount where the starter button was. That way she can turn her amp on and off at the push of a button rather than fumbling with the stereo trying to turn it on and off in the case that there may be a cop nearby or whatever the case is. So let's get this tossed in there and see how she works. Alright guys, got the battery hooked up temporarily, stereo's all installed, my RCAs and my remote wire are temporarily hanging out in the floorboard, but I will be running those under the carpet and have them come out under the seat. And my toggle switch wires are here. Made sure nothing's touching ground and everything's good to go, so let's make sure she's working.
In the second verse, you will notice, but Israeli military officials are hailing losing the supply of electricity. But Israeli military... Now she in love. Z-Baxley, Z90.
Hopefully our ignition switch wire will come in and we'll be able to button this all back up soon. It is a new day, guys, and our ignition switch came in. So I plugged my harness back in, so I've got to remove it again down there at the bottom of the column. But there's 2 Torx bits here we got to get out. Our steering wheel adjustment lever pulls straight out, and we got to get that out to get this cover off. Then there's 1 screw here to get the top cover out. And then we'll have a couple of push pins and stuff for the connectors. And all that stuff just pulls out, and then there's a couple zip ties and stuff that we got to get, and then that will come out. But on the actual harness, where it connects to the main harness of the body, there's 2 harnesses that clip into this part of the connector. We got to go ahead and pop those out as well. But once those are out, this part will come right out, and then we can button this one up. Alright y'all, moment of truth. I got my solenoid wire hooked back up and I got my battery connected. Hell yeah! Woohoo! now that we've got that figured out, the easiest thing to do on this fuel gauge is to hook this cluster up, since she already got one from the junkyard, and see if it works. If not, we either got a short in our wiring or the fuel level sender isn't working in the new pump. So let's throw this one in there and see what happens. All right, battery's hooked back up. And the fuel gauge still does not work, guys. So I'm gonna bet it's either going to be in the wiring or it's going to be the fuel level sending unit itself, which I'll almost bet it's gonna be the sending unit. And I'm gonna have to drop the tank to replace that. So it's not gonna be fun, but we'll go ahead and button all this back up and get it all put back together. But at least we got the stereo knocked out and we got the ignition wiring figured out, and we can get rid of that button down there. So let's get this all buttoned up and get my toggle switch hooked up. Got her all set up, guys. Got the amp wiring run under the carpet, comes out under the seat. And I think we worked out a deal where she's gonna get the Scar EVO 8 that I put together for the Mustang. She's just gotta get her an amp. And I got her remote wire switch all hooked up. And it only comes on if the stereo's on. And she starts up with the key. Alright guys, I think that's going to be about it for this video. But as always, thanks for the support. And if you're new to the channel, my name is Richard. I like to tinker on cars. And please like, share, and subscribe. It helps me more than you know, getting me more views. Join me on the next S10 video, where we're going to tackle this door hinge problem on the driver's side. That way we don't have to slam the door so hard when we close it, and we'll be able to fix this door panel where it's coming apart and get this gas gauge situation figured out. And instead of dropping the tank, I think I'm going to pull the bed, and while I'm at it, go ahead and weld up those cracks and sand it down and get a little primer put on that. And thanks again, guys. Like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.